7 Most Amazing Time Capsules in the World. 1. Steve Jobs Time Capsule. Back in 1983, during a big tech conference in Aspen, they decided to bury a time capsule named The Future Isn't What It Used to Be. Inside this capsule, they put lots of cool stuff from the 1980s. Even Steve Jobs, the guy who made Apple, put in a mouse he was using at that time. But when they tried to dig it up in the year 2000, they couldn't find it. It was supposed to be this big 13-foot-long tube, but it just vanished. Surprisingly, they found it 13 years later in 2013. When they opened it, they found so many cool things from the 80s, like a Rubik's Cube and even a recording of a band called the Moody Blues. There were over 1,000 items inside, including Steve Jobs' mouse. They even found a 6-pack of beer for the workers who dug it up. 2. Detroit Century Box. A long time ago, people thought we'd have flying cars by now, but the only flying cars we have are in movies or in SpaceX rockets. But here's something cool, they recently found a time capsule that's over 100 years old. It's called the Detroit Century Box, and they buried it way back in 1900 to celebrate the new century. Then, on December 31, 2000, they dug it up. Inside were all sorts of predictions about the future from important people in Detroit. Some of the predictions came true, like turning trash into energy, which we do now with something called gasification. 3. Asylum Time Capsule. Imagine finding a time capsule in an old, spooky mental asylum. In 2015, workers did just that. Inside, they found a videotape with scary messages from doctors who worked there back in 1958. These doctors talked about treatments like electroshock therapy, which we now know is harmful. They even mentioned a treatment called insulin shock therapy, where patients were given large doses of insulin and put into a coma for weeks. Back then, people thought these treatments were advanced, but now we see them as cruel and outdated. It's unsettling to hear what these doctors were doing, but it's also amazing to see how far we've come in medicine. 4. 8113 Time Capsule. Do you know how people sometimes bury time capsules for future generations to find? Well, there's one super special time capsule. It's called the Crypt of Civilization, and it was made in 1936 by a professor named Thornwell Jacobs. He thought it would be cool if nobody opened it until the year 8113. That's a long time. Inside, there's tons of stuff, like microfilm with millions of pages, a generator that runs on wind, and even a machine to teach future people English. There are also recordings of famous people and even cartoon characters. It's like a big treasure chest for the future. 5. Cake Capsule. In 2013, a couple found a strange box while fixing up their house in Niagara Falls. Inside, they thought they'd find cool stuff from 1948, like old papers or maybe some valuable items. And they did find some of that, like newspapers and postcards. But they also found something unexpected, a piece of cake. Wrapped up in paper, it must have been from a party back when the box was sealed. Sadly, it was too old to eat. 6. Pennsylvania Army Capsule. Colonel Michael Konsman was researching his Army history when he stumbled upon a note mentioning a time capsule from 1900. Excited, he and his team dug up a copper box from their base's cornerstone. Inside were cool old things about their unit, even an ancient cigar. Michael says, the internet can be bad, but it helped us find something amazing. The time capsules are real treasure trove, full of history and maybe some valuable coins too. 7. Oldest American Time Capsule. Imagine finding a super old box filled with history. That's what happened with America's oldest time capsule. It was buried way back in 1795 by Paul Revere, the American revolutionary. But it got lost over time because it was hidden in the Massachusetts State House. Fast forward to 2014, workers fixing a broken pipe found it. Inside, they discovered a metal box with amazing stuff like coins with George Washington's face, old newspapers, and even a silver coin from 1652. People think they hid it from the British way back when.